Maybe it's too soon to talk about the summer of '72, that time when Paul and Valerie fell in love at first sight and went right out looking for a place to have an affair. And kept looking until they found the house that vanished. From the company that reminds you, it's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Okay, The House That Vanished. That would be our movie today, starring Andrea Allen.
Who apparently did some.
I saw him. I saw her pictures.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. She's very pretty.
Oh yeah, I had
Um,
seen this movie before, and
have
I
you really?
may
Okay.
I may even have done a podcast on it on what you call it on Slow Robot. But I saw it again, and it was like, oh okay, and I watched the version you sent me, the crap version of it. It was really hard to watch,
Yeah, it was.
but the other version is a little bit better. But I watched it just to see what exactly the 10 extra minutes were, and I guess there was maybe some extra nudity in.
There was a. I think there was a scene where the guy and his aunt are having sex. It looks like they cut out. There was a scene where the guy attacks the the friend in the apartment, and has his way with her, and then cuts her up. So
Okay.
it was more. And they were probably left out because they were deemed too
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
violent or something. But, I mean, it kind of because there were a couple of times when like the scene really jumped, like when she was coming home from something, and the next thing you know, she's in the police station. You're like, wait, what? So it added context to some of the things, but the quality was so horrible. And I searched and I saw others. They all had that crap quality. I mean, really bad
Yeah, I
quality.
mean, the one that I picked the one that I picked looked watchable on YouTube, but
Yeah,
on the regular TV, not so much, you know.
yeah.
But it was more watchable than this one. But I want to watch this one because I
Yeah,
want
just
to
to
see.
see.
So that sex scene between the guy and his aunt that was cut out of the other
Yeah,
one.
well, it wasn't cut out, but
It was it was
there was
briefer.
a brief cut. Like I don't know what because I didn't look at that. And they also cut out the attack scene of the girl of her friend in the apartment.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
that was. But and then also sometimes even though it seems longer, there's a little bit of padding in the front where the
Yeah,
guy's getting his channel and going and whatnot. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a murder mystery. It's an interesting movie, but I don't know if it's because of the 10 extra minutes, but at times it was a little slow. You know what I mean? It's like they lingered on, but that's because it's basically a British movie, but it's directed by a Spanish director, Jose Larraz or whatever, who did another movie called Vampires, which is a lot sexier than this one, but a way lot sexier than this one. But this one had some lot of nudity in it. I got to give it that much, especially like as the movie went
yeah,
along. There was a lot of and the violence was whatever. It was. I couldn't see it clearly because of the choppy print. So I'd like to see if they had a nicer one. But I looked on Tubi, but I didn't see it on Tubi.
yeah, I didn't find it on Tubi either. And
So
except for the one you sent, every other copy was that really bad. I mean, it was
digitized one.
yeah. Well, it was a VHS that looked like it was recorded on very slow mo and then copied several times before because there were times when you couldn't. It was just like swirls of color or shape. You couldn't even really see.
Yeah, no, I know. The VHS is. I have a VHS of it somewhere. Probably in storage. You'll find it tomorrow, hopefully. But it looks better than that. But again, I wanted to see what the extra
Yeah,
10
exactly.
minutes were or whatever. So okay, all right. But anyway, so the lead. I think what was her name in this? Vicky or something like that. The lead.
Valerie Jennings.
She doesn't know. She's not good at picking guys. Her.
No, no, she's not, and she seems a bit. I don't want to say dumb, but she
A
doesn't.
little bit, little bit.
So she's having photos of herself taken, and
Yeah,
she's a
yeah.
fashion model, and the photographer wants to get nude photos of her, And she's like, "Oh no, I because I don't trust you," and blah blah. And then they keep switching to this picture with this guy in a bar talking, and he's got his kid outside in the car reading a Tarzan comic,
That's
and
right.
keeps going back. It turns out he's her boyfriend, and so they're driving, and the kid finds her portfolio of
And she
sending.
takes it away from him. She's like,
Yeah,
no,
she
don't look
takes
at
it
it.
away from him. So then he drops the kid off, and then they're driving. And they're looking for a house, and they don't really tell you why. But he finds the house. He says, "Wait here." He goes in, and he's like looking around for stuff. She goes in, and she's calling his name. His name Paul. Is it Paul? Oh, Terry.
Paul, yep.
No, Terry. She's like, "Terry, look."
Terry, okay.
So he's like yelling at. I told you to wait in the car. So he's there to rob the house. And I don't know, because he's looking at a map trying to find it. So I don't know if he knew anything about the house or what, but it seems like on the one hand he stumbled upon the house and he just picked it at random, but on the other,
Yeah, you don't really know if there's, because I was always
yeah,
thinking that he was going there because he specifically knew there was something there that
yeah,
he wanted, or he knew the people there or something. It's
yeah.
never explained.
So anyway, she finds a bunch of passports, and that's weird. But then they hear people come in, so they go hide in the closet. And we're there, and we see this woman. This you don't see the guy, but he's wearing gloves and a long coat. And he sits down, and the girl who he's with, she's just talking a mile a minute and taking off her clothes, and finally she's nude, and she sits on her lap, and she grabs his gloved hands to touch her breast and stuff, and suddenly he pulls out a switchblade and he starts slapping her and killing her and stuff. And then Terry and Valerie are watching from the closet. So he goes into the bathroom to clean off the knife. She freaks. She runs out the door and doesn't check to see if that guy Terry followed her.
Right, right.
She gets it. She gets in Terry's car, but there's no key. So then she starts running, and you can hear the guy walking towards her. And she ends up in this like junkyard, and she hides in one of the cars, and you can hear him looking for her, and then he walks away. And then she kind of freaks out, and I think she waits till like
She
when
waits
it's
till
more.
the next day.
Yeah, so then she hitches a ride back to London, gets to her house, and
See, it's an apartment, right?
it's an apartment in a house, so it
Okay,
looks like.
because later on you find out that there's another person living.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she meets the landlady at one point. She meets the landlady and somebody.
Yeah, there's a new guy, but anyway, that's getting ahead of
Anyway, but
ourselves.
before
Yeah.
that, she gets to her apartment that day, and she's looking for a mail. She goes upstairs, and she looks out a window, and she sees Terry's car. She's going, "That's weird." So she goes down to the car, and she
She's looking
finds her.
around for stuff in the
Yeah,
car or whatever.
finds her portfolio, and one of the photographs is missing, which she finds weird. So then she goes, back to the
Her apartment house, whatever.
yeah, and then she gets dressed and she goes to Terry's apartment. He's not there, so she's like, "Well, why is his car in front of my house?" And but he's not home. So then she visits her friends.
This is gets weird here.
Yeah, so you see, it starts with
This is
woman laying in
weird.
bed, and this baby baboon starts climbing on her and jumping on her, and
And she's nude.
she's nude. She's kissing it and petting it and playing with it. And
And that
then
was
so that's
freaky.
that's her friends, and
And her
she's
boy
telling them,
her and the other guy that's with her, her boyfriend or
I think
whatever.
it's Mike, yeah. So then she's telling them what happened, and they're like, "Well, don't go to the police because if you do, then you're going to be charged with the burglary as well, and blah 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 blah." And she's like, "All right." So then she's back with the photographer, and he's shooting more photos of her, and
And she meets the blonde guy, the mask guy, the guy who
yes,
makes masks.
photographer says, "Oh, why would you meet my friend Paul? He makes masks for him." It's like, all right. So he invites her over for dinner, and they have a nice time. And then his aunt comes there. Oh, his aunt's there, and he makes the mask. She paints them, and it's just yammering away and stuff. So at the end of the the evening. He drives her home, and she goes, to her bed. And then he comes back, and he's in bed reading the book, and his aunt comes in, and he takes off her clothes. And
Oh, but before that, remember when she went back to the house, there was a scene where there's like she goes into the basement and there's a bunch of
yes,
pigeons.
yeah, because she hears a noise,
She heard the noise, yeah.
and she goes downstairs, and apparently there's a bunch of pigeons down there in the back room.
And you don't know yet why,
Right.
whatever.
So
So
then,
yeah, yeah.
and then there's the scene with him having sex with his aunt and stuff. So then,
No, but I mean, he goes back to her house, and then she calls her, and then he sees her, and then he sees a strange car pulling up to the house at night, and then
oh, right,
and
yeah,
then that's when and then she goes in the house, and that's when like she meets the new tenant, I believe, some weird
right,
looking guy or whatever,
right.
and then I think the next day after that she goes to the junkyard with her friends, and they can't find the house.
Yeah, they find the car, Terry's car, that was parked in front of
So
her
the
house.
car's been moving around or whatever.
Yeah, so that's red. They can't find the house. So, she goes back to her apartment,
And
and
that's when she gets a call from the
that's,
mask
well,
maker or
that's when she
whatever.
meets the weirdo guy, the pigeon guy, the new neighbor.
Paul, no, oh no. The pigeon guy is I forgot what it is, but the blonde guy, the guy who makes the mask, that's Paul.
Right. Yeah, Paul's the mask. Mr. Hornsby's the guy with the pigeons. And so
Mr.
he's wearing
Hornsby.
gloves, so she thinks he's the murderer. She's not sure. But then her roommate comes back from Paris, and they're talking, and oh, how was Paris? Oh, it was great. And then she's like, oh, I'm glad you're home because this weird stuff happened and stuff. And then the pigeon guy knocks on the door to introduce himself, and again he's wearing gloves, and they're like, well, he's weird. It's like, oh, if I make noise, it's because I let my pigeons go, and they're flying around, and they're flying against the seal. Something weird like that.
But anyway, just getting back a little bit, when she goes to the mask oh yeah, the guy's name is Paul or whatever.
Yeah.
The guy who the mother's the one who the aunt is the one who makes the mask, but he's like the one who designs them or
Yeah,
whatever.
something like that.
That's when like he goes in there and like she's basically like like she doesn't say she says it later. She's like, this guy's too close to his aunt or whatever. He needs to get
Yeah.
out on his own. And then after she leaves or he takes her home, that's when you see the sex
Oh,
scene
okay.
between the that guy Paul and his aunt, which I thought it was his mother, but I guess it's his aunt
Oh,
or
same
whatever.
thing, same difference. So
Yeah.
then she's out with her friends, the two people with the baboon, and they're talking, and she's like, this is weird. I don't know. Oh, and then she's telling him about Paul, and he's like, oh, be careful about Paul. Oh, I know how to handle Paul. And while she's
Yeah.
out with her friends, somebody breaks in and attacks and murders the roommate who just came back from France.
Yeah.
And that scene was cut in the better quality movie, but it was in the
Oh, it
bad.
was. Oh, okay. It was
Yeah,
edited in the
yeah,
okay. All
because what
right.
happened was, after she comes back home, and she's getting ready for bed. Then she sees the her dead friend, and then they go. She's at the police station telling the cops what happened, and they're talking to her and stuff. But in the better version, it goes, she's out with the friends, and then the next scene, she's at the police, and you hear him say, "Well, she was raped and murdered and stuff."
Oh, so that rape scene is not shown in the other
Yeah, it's not
version
shown
of.
in the better quality.
Oh,
Which, I mean, on the one hand, I can understand, but on the other, it gave no context. It's just like a big jump, bad editing.
yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So then she's upset. So Paul offers, well, why don't you come stay with me? I'll take care of you, and
She
I'll help you.
she does get interrogated by Scotland Yard after the
Yeah,
murder though.
yeah, and they want to know who knew who and what.
And don't leave town or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So she goes to, and then as she goes back to the apartment because she's going to go with Paul to stay with him.
In his mansion in the country or
And
whatever.
the pigeon man comes out and apologizes. And you're not sure what role. I mean, if they're trying to make it,
They're making the pigeon man real creepy or whatever, you
yeah,
know.
and it's almost like they're trying to make him seem like he's something other than what he says he is. But I
Yeah.
don't know if it was because he shows up at the end, and I'm like, with the cops. I'm like, where the hell did he come from?
Yeah, and he was in, and when she was meeting with Paul, he was saying, "Well, when you're gone, can I have a contact number for you in case something
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need something is needed, or I can?" And she goes, "No, no, that's okay, that's all right." He doesn't. She doesn't. They don't want to give him any information or
right.
whatever.
So then, she packs. She agrees to. She goes with Paul to the manor house, and then when they're there, he's telling her all about the house and how his father killed himself because his mother did this or whatever.
So
Uh,
something about like, "Oh, you're so beautiful," but maybe that's not a good thing because my father killed himself over beauty or something
yeah,
like that.
something weird like that.
Yeah.
And then, she's hearing noise upstairs and says, "Is somebody else here?" And he's like, "Oh no, we're all alone in the house." So then he goes into the kitchen to get food or tea or whatever.
Or
So she
booze.
goes upstairs and she's walking around and when she was first in the house that Terry was robbing, she saw this stuffed leopard. So now when she goes up to Paul, she's in Paul's house and she goes upstairs to investigate the noise. She sees the stuffed leopard. She goes, "Oh crap, I'm in the same house." So then she goes into the bedroom and she sees the bloody bed sheets and she's like, "Oh shit." And then she hears somebody walking up the stairs, and so she hides in the closet, and it's the aunt who comes in the room, and she looks, and the aunt calls Paul to come up, and she says, "You have to stop this now," and she's yelling at him, and while uh,
Well, she had a sex scene with Paul before all this happened. Remember? Like when he went to get her drinks, I'm pretty sure like when he went to get her drinks, they had like a sex scene by the fireplace.
ah,
And
yeah,
she woke and then when she found out herself alone, she
yeah,
dressed up and yeah,
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 that's when she went up. So anyway, Valerie, she's hiding in the closet. And then she finds the dead body of Terry and the girl who was murdered.
right.
So she like screams, runs downstairs, and then Paul's down there. He goes after her and he starts attacking her. He pulls out a switchblade, and then Susanna comes down and says, "Oh, you gotta kill him! You gotta kill him! You gotta kill her!" And so, but apparently Paul has some feelings for Valerie, so instead he kills his aunt. And then Valerie runs outside, and as she runs outside, the police are pulling up. And then, they're getting out of the car. One of the people who gets out of the car is the pigeon man, Hornsby. And
Yeah.
then she sort of runs to him and he takes care of her and puts her in the car. And it's like, why, where the hell did he come from? Why is he like, was he, uh,
Was he with the
plant?
police? Was he
Yeah,
watching
was he a
her?
plant, like an undercover cop or something?
Yeah.
So anyway, they're getting ready to go in the house. And then you see Paul there. He's sitting in the hallway in the chair, like kind of polishing his switchblade or something. And the end.
Yeah, I mean basically it's like doesn't explain Hornsby. You don't really know what he was. And how did he know that where she was unless he followed her, you
Yeah,
know?
they traced the film.
And I
Well, no,
mean
she didn't
why
give up any information. Yeah, so they must have followed her or something.
excuse me, hold on. Let's edit. Let's edit that out. Yeah, it was weird. And why is it that they couldn't find the house? They were right by the junkyard there. But I guess anything's possible because she wasn't driving the car that night.
Yeah,
And what happened to that guy's kid?
yeah. I mean, was the kid there just I don't know, like a
I don't know. He was just like, he was just there for that one scene and then he didn't appear
yeah,
anymore as far as I
disappeared?
can tell.
Just to show that Terry was a lousy dad or something. Who knows? It was kind of disjointed. It looks
A
like it had
little
a good
bit.
a good story in there, but they just didn't quite get all the parts working together. So, and I think
No,
they tried
no.
to uh, pass over things with showing boobs and whatnot, which happens sometimes in these movies.
Yeah, I mean, and I saw the other print of it, and I'm just gonna watch it again if I can, if I remember to, or I'm in the mood,
Yeah,
just to see if it makes more sense. Because this one seemed a little more, and it could have been because of the bad quality of it. It seemed a little more disjointed than the other one that I watched, but um, I remember liking it more than I did the first time than I did this time. I mean, I still like the movie. I still thinks it's okay, but I remember liking it better the first time. And it was been years since I watched it. But I had forgotten who the killer was too. I mean, after a while, I figured it out. Because when he took her to the mansion, I figured, oh, I get it. Yeah, I
I
get
get
it.
that.
At that point, yeah, because there was only like two. See, I see another thing that I wasn't sure about was when she saw the murder. I thought both her and Terry went out into the woods, but it seems like Terry stayed in the house.
Yeah, I don't know if he got spooked or and decided to hide, or I mean, they don't really tell you, just that he's dead.
Again, the picture was very blurry or whatever, but
Yeah,
I thought he left the house, but but it makes sense that he was just that the guy she ran out and he maybe he caught the guy before he could leave or whatever and threw him in there. But a lot of stuff is not explained properly. It's very leisurely edited or whatever. Or I don't know.
it
You know,
wasn't.
it
I think
wasn't clear.
there's the bones of a really good movie. They
It
just
is.
didn't quite, like I said, get all the pieces working together like it.
I mean,
And
I mean,
some of the,
it's good enough to be entertaining.
yeah, it was that. It was entertaining.
A little bit boring, but again, I think it's better to watch the edited cut than the unedited cut because it goes. I'd see. Maybe it makes more sense. I don't know, but I mean, since I watched the other one, I just watched this one. If you said this one is a little more explicit, I go, okay, well, now I watched the complete movie or whatever. But there were things, and again, maybe the digitizing prevented me from seeing things. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
that's I'm sure that's it. But the because I watched the one you originally sent, the better quality
You
one.
did.
That
Okay.
was more cohesive,
Okay.
except for one or two spots where they obviously did a really big
Oh, so
broad
you watched
cut.
both of them? Okay.
So the second one, I kind of scanned through to the parts that I thought maybe they had they did a really bad editing job, and that's when I saw like the attack in the of the friend in the apartment, and then so that kind of filled in. But definitely, if you can't see what's going on, and sometimes you couldn't, and you didn't know who the hell's talking or where they are, it's going to make it even more confusing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I got the plot line and I was able to catch most of it, but there were a few things here and there that I was like, okay, so what happened to this person and what happened
Yeah,
to that person? And there was one scene where like the photographer alluded to like, yeah, he was kind of like, I don't want to see you coming in here with a black eye anymore, so that apparently that Terry guy who was her boyfriend was
yeah,
abusive to
yeah.
him too.
Used to, yeah,
And
that's right.
I'm like, I mean, in the reality, in the real world, she was way better than that guy. She was
Yeah,
but she picked the other dummy too. The other guy, the mask maker, Paul or whatever his name was. He just seemed like a little kind of like sissy Faye or whatever. He looked
definitely.
like a little. Obviously, he was a mama's boy, because there
Yeah,
was even a scene where like before he killed the aunt where the aunt was telling him what we talked about first, you have to kill her, you have to kill her. So it's almost like she didn't want anybody coming in between them. So and then you thought he was the mask maker, but apparently he was just a designer. She was the
yeah.
mask
He was
maker.
the best maker, and yeah, it
So
was. Yeah, it had some
and
confusing.
Andrea Allen's character, she just was like, okay. The only things that she put up a fight against was she didn't want the guy to shoot her nude.
Yeah,
Because she said I think there was a scene where he goes, well, I've seen your nude pictures before. She was like, yeah, but you're gonna make me want to do something that I don't want to do, and I can understand that.
yeah.
I get it. There's some photographers that try to trick models, and we'll just do a nude
Yeah.
scene, and the next thing you do, you got like three guys, popping out of the closet there, and doing dirty deeds. They're cheap. So
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of get that. I kind of get that. That's what I think that business kind of is. I've heard stories about like back in the old days how like you know girls would go to L.A. try to get into movies, and then you
Yeah,
get into modeling, and then the guy the agent goes, hey, look, I will give you some more money if you do something more risky, and really nobody will see it, and then they end up doing porn.
yeah, exactly.
you know, I've heard that story before by some
I,
actresses or whatever. So
I
yeah, I
think
get it.
watching the two different versions was like, remember we watched that movie with Ringo Starr and
But
that Swedish
we watched
girl.
a lot of them. Which one?
Yeah, but there was the one. She was the Swedish girl. He was the
Oh,
gardener.
Candy.
Candy. There was like the two versions, and the second version added some things, but it didn't really add to the whole movie per se. So I
It
think
was
it's
just.
the same with these two versions. You
Yeah,
know,
you're probably right. You're probably right. Now you notice that this movie, when you see the credits, is a big chop. That
yeah,
originally the title was "Scream and Die" or something like
yes,
that, and
yeah.
then they changed it. Both of them had the same edit in it. It said "The House That Vanished" or whatever. Now I'm wondering if it's very possible that the person who posted the better edited some scenes out because maybe he didn't want to,
Didn't want
push the limit or whatever. I'd like to find I I I I'd like to find a DVD of it and see the complete movie or whatever to see what's what and what goes on or whatever. But I'm pretty sure that in the version that we saw, that's exactly what the director filmed. I don't think there's any more coherence in it in certain aspects or whatever.
I don't think it's like the second version of the longer version of Candy we watched. It filled in some
Oh,
spots
but yeah,
here and there,
yeah. Now I remember. I
but
remember now. But you know what? But the second version of Candy, the unedited one, and the first one didn't. In the first one, I remember there was one particular scene where she's at the end it's the end of the movie, and she finds John Aston, her father, and then they're at the temple, and all of a sudden the temple starts. But in the unedited version, he either had sex with her or tried to
yeah,
have sex with her, so
yeah,
incest was implied. And then I remember now. I did
yeah.
watch.
And there was
Now I remember.
a whole scene with the after party of the operation.
There was more to it.
Yeah, there was
Yes.
more to it, but it didn't help the movie. It didn't make the movie more coherent or explainable.
Yeah, I mean, the Aston scene did kind of add something which we didn't know that his father.
Right,
Her father was all because in the movie, the whole movie is about everybody trying to make it with her.
right.
So at the end, it's her father too. Yeah, that's a. I don't think even Ringo liked that movie. I think he said
Uh,
something that it was crap or whatever. But
I
it is what it is. You
well,
know.
there was a time when late '60s, early '70s, everybody was trying to be
Yeah,
experimental and avant-garde and all that
yeah,
other stuff, and that produced a lot of crap. Let's just
it's
face
true.
crap.
It's true. But I'll defend that. I'll defend that crap by saying at least they were trying to do something. Nowadays, it's just like, just
Well,
let's
now
add some CGI to it and fix it or
yeah,
whatever.
they do a ton of CGI. What they try to do is make sure when it goes to foreign markets, it's an easy movie. You don't have to translate an explosion or a fight scene. So they have to do the minimal amount of work to make it presentable to others. Uh,
Yeah, back then, I mean, I didn't mind the experimental stuff, even though a lot of it is BS,
yeah,
because it was at the time you were going from a real kind of safe entertainment
yeah, very
to
rigid formula of what.
yeah, to like all of a sudden the sexual revolution happened
Yeah,
and everything started to get a little sexier. And then after that, the violence started getting more, which was good at first, but then it got overblown and it went over the top or whatever. So it was breaking away from like the old morals, and whether that's good or not, it's probably not good. But as a kid, as a young man, it was interesting to go see movies and see people trying to push the limits of what they can get away with.
different things.
I mean,
You like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I never saw it,
Totally
but
incomprehensible movie. I've read about it. I've had the endings explained numerous times. It's still an incomprehensible movie,
it
but
makes sense if you're wasted, I think.
it was fun to watch. You know,
Hey, next time get drunk and watch it. Maybe it'll make sense. I don't know. I'm not
or if
gonna
it doesn't, I
bother with
don't
it.
care.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with it. It's like there's movies that I missed out back then that I'm not gonna go back and.
Yeah, of course.
It's too late now. You know what I mean? I read about them. I read about them so much that I don't have any interest in them, as well as not having any interest in new movies. But there's plenty of old movies that I haven't seen.
Yeah, there are a lot of some really interesting movies. I joined this group, Incredibly Strange Movies, on
Mm,
Facebook. It
yeah.
has some interesting. It has a lot of crap too, but it has some interesting movies, and that's like a good movie to watch. Or that's like, or sometimes you're watching.
It gives you ideas or whatever.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
gives you ideas of where to go and what to look or people to look up. That so because one person's strange movie is another person's.
Oh yeah. It only takes it's so I can't think what the word is, but it only takes it could take a certain scene, a certain
Yeah,
actor, a certain thing in the movie to make you like it, whereas somebody else would go, "This is just crap."
yeah,
I'll give you an example, which has nothing to do with movies, to do with records. I've always thought that my favorite Stones record is "Exile on Main Street," the double album, and it was always critically praised. Now I'm finding out that a lot of people online are like, well, it's just a bunch of average songs and this and that and the other thing, but it's like I just like it because it has a feeling to it.
yeah,
It has an atmosphere, feeling to it, and it's coherent as opposed to like a collection of songs. But then again, somebody else might like the record that has way stronger production and way
right.
stronger songs, and they'll forgive a couple of clunkers that may not be clunkers in their opinion. Same with a movie. I might like the cheapest movie in the world just because I like a performance, just
Yeah,
because I like the actor,
yeah,
just
exactly.
because I like the feel of the movie.
Yeah, like a lot of Vincent Price movies aren't necessarily great movies, but when he's in them, he's fun to watch,
And he carries it for you.
and he carries it for it. So
He
yeah,
makes you care about it. He makes you want to
right,
keep watching the movie, whether it's bad or, you know.
yeah, or like you say, the production values. There's a certain look to it. Like some European movies, they're in actual castles, so that really carries
Exactly.
a lot of weight and feeling for the movie,
Exactly right. The movie could be
as
boring
opposed
as
to
hell.
yeah, as opposed to being on a big sound stage where no castle would look like that.
And if you know that you're watching a European movie from the 60s and 70s, whether it's horror or exploitation, it's going to usually be sexier and more
Yeah,
violent than an American movie. So,
yeah, yeah,
but back then they kind of had a little more taste as far as what they showed and didn't show.
right.
Now, in the 70s, by the late 70s, just went, it
Yeah, I
went
just
into,
love
it went to the gross meter went up like,
it.
by a
Yeah,
million or whatever, you know what I mean?
yeah,
The old directors died, and then you guys said, well, the only way we're going to compete with these movies is to show more blood and guts and sex, and that's what
yeah,
they did, and
yeah,
and they have their fans, and it's usually a different generation from you. It's usually people that are 4 or 5 years older than you, younger,
mhm,
I mean, than you, that really grew up with those. So there's always like I grew up watching these movies and
right,
read these records and these comics, and this is what is the golden age for me. Somebody who graduated 3 or 4 years from you might enjoy those, but say, no, but I also like Star Wars a lot too, or I also like this other movie a lot too. And you're like, well, okay, I guess when you're a kid back then, 1 or 2 years makes so much of a difference because
this is it. Yeah,
you're basically like a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. That's a
yeah,
world of difference back
yeah,
then.
big difference. Uh, like there's a lot of people from the '80s love certain movies, and I like to me
Yeah, exactly.
they're okay, but they're not great. But to
There's
them,
people there's people that love all those Friday the 13th
yeah,
and Halloween
Halloween,
movies.
yeah, just and like they're okay. I mean, they're not really scary or anything.
No. You know what they usually say? Oh man, this movie had great kills.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's what it was like. And it's like these are smart people, but even back then they used to say, "Oh yeah, this movie has a high kill count," or in Joe Bob Briggs, he has a high boob count or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to watch smart people talking about movies and go, oh yeah, it's a great movie. It had all these great kills and all this, and it was like, that's not the way I watch movies. But
Yeah,
the movies that I liked were the movies that were creepy and tried to scare
they
you.
had a mood and the scare, and they weren't all jump scares. They put you
No,
in this like really creepy, weirded out. Because sometimes you saw the monster coming and it was coming slowly and you couldn't escape. That really freaked
I
me.
never understood before. Before I used to read about, well, the scariest thing in these movies is what they don't show you and what your mind imagines.
Right.
And it's exactly true. I
Yeah.
realized it at an older age because it's like now that they show you all the gore and all the stuff, it's just like, okay, you just showed me a
Well,
bunch
it
of
was,
gore.
yeah, that like those Dawn of the Dead movie where you have all the you see all
Yeah,
the guts and all the stuff spitting out and people,
yeah.
biting off necks. It's like it doesn't have the same creepiness as the first movie where you really didn't see much and the blood was like Bosco.
No, and I understand why they have to make a gore movie like Dawn of the Dead because they have to compete against other gore movies.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
sure.
it's a well done movie, but it's kind of like okay, well, if am I gonna have a tame movie? People might not come see it, so I gotta deliver because we're talking a different generation now that grew up
True, yeah,
with rougher movies than we
yeah,
did.
yeah,
So I don't mind. I don't like the gore. I mean, I'll deal with it, but I don't like it. I like suggested stuff. I don't care if you want to make it really sexy, that's fine. If you want to make it a little bit violent, that's fine. But I don't need to see like somebody's. I can see if you're going to show somebody getting their whatever cut or whatever, okay. But don't like just
linger and show the
linger
knife and
and show
the
all the effects
skin
and all that
opening and then veins popping out and
because it's just a special effects movie. It's
well, that's
not
it.
it's not a horror movie. It's a special effects movie.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of movies now that use CGI,
It's a special
uh,
effects movie,
it becomes a special effects movie rather than a
a horror
horror
movie, or
adventure.
or a scary movie or whatever. The
Yeah,
scary movies are the ones that insinuate things and scare you in different ways. Like, oh, that's creepy. Oh, that's weird. Like you'll be like, I'll give you an example. It's like say there's scene where you're walking through a castle, and you're just walking through a hallway and it's dark, and there's a sense of dread there or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like somebody standing there with like say a candelabra, a lady's looking or whatever, and all of a sudden like the light catches a figure coming out of the background. To me, that's scarier than
scary
having
as hell.
somebody jump up and like grab her and cut her up and doing all that stuff. Just the slight suspenseful scene of something coming out that you're not expecting.
Yeah,
And then you don't. But then okay, whatever happens happens. You don't have to show all the guts because you really ruin it.
yeah,
You really ruin it when you do that. You destroyed the movie because you called attention to the special effects and to the gore as opposed to showing you the story or whatever. All these like movies, the Freddy movies and all that. Yeah, the first ones maybe had a little bit of a story to them, but after a while, it just becomes cartoon characters killing each other.
it's how to kill a teenager in a different way.
Now, I did see a movie called Halloween 3, which was completely different from the rest of them. And I didn't mind that one because it was completely different about masks and kids.
Oh, the masks, yeah,
That one was different from the other ones because it didn't have that character in it. And I didn't mind that movie,
yeah.
but it wasn't real popular with the fans. They wanted to go back
Well,
to
yeah,
whoever
they
it was.
wanted the dead teenager movie.
Freddie, Jason, or whatever the hell the name was. And even a movie like whatchamacallit, Texas Chainsaw. Yeah, it was gory, but a lot of it, if you look at the movie, it's implied.
Yeah,
It's not like totally like 100%. It's not like one of those Lucio Fulci movies where it's like you see a guy getting drilled through the head, and it's a lot of it is just tension and implication and showing
yeah,
things that oh, that's disgusting, but you don't see anything. That's the trick. It's almost like a magic trick.
yeah, exactly.
You kind of
You
trick
wouldn't
somebody into seeing something that's not there.
what you imagine is going to be far worse than what you actually
Yeah, I never realized that
think.
until like a few years ago. You know what? They're right. Movies like The Cat People and stuff in the 40s when I was a kid, I was like, this is kind of tame now. But if you
Yeah,
watch it now, it is a little bit on the tame side, but the suspense in it is kind of gripping. But maybe it was meant for older people, not for kids. I don't know.
yeah, maybe.
I mean,
But back
obviously, when
then,
you're a kid, you always want to see the monsters. So
yeah, when I was a kid, that's what I did want to see the monsters. But even if they were in shadow, I was okay with it. But now, I mean,
yeah, I
like
mean,
the
now
first Alien
I don't even know.
movie was great because you really didn't see the monster that close up. And then as you start to see more of it, it kind of loses its
Yeah, the
it,
mystery of it.
yeah, it loses its impact. So
I mean, there's that Nosferatu movie now, and I mean, it's like, whatever. I'll see it when I see it. I'm
yeah,
not. People that I trust say it's decent,
yeah,
but I don't know. It's kind of like. But some guy did make a comment. I said I was online on YouTube, and I said the original is the best one. And even though I haven't seen the new one, but I just said the original best one. I said, why do they keep trying to top the original? And the guy made a really good comment. And he goes, do you think 2024 humans are going to sit and watch the 1921 Nosferatu? And I'm going like, yeah, most of them
yeah.
probably aren't.
Well, they are, but I would.
I would, of course, I would.
In
That's
fact,
that's
I
that's
have. It's
that's
a
that's
great
the
movie.
best one. Me too. But
Yeah,
kids today, they're probably not going to sit through that.
that's true. Too slow, and they're on their dance songs anyway. So.
Too slow. They'll laugh at it. They'll go like, look at this guy, so creepy. Look at how clunky he is, or whatever. But it's a different mindset. I
Yeah,
mean, there will be some people that'll watch it, obviously, but the majority of them will want a movie that has a look to it, that has a feel to it, that has a more modern sensibility to it because they're younger people or whatever. So,
yeah.
whatever.
I think there's a scene where somebody's in a stagecoach and it goes over a cliff and explodes.
Is that in the new movie?
I'm just joking, but that's
Oh,
usually
okay.
for a while. That was
Yeah,
the
exactly.
in
It's
every
usually
freaking
car.
movie. You had to have a car go over a cliff, and then for
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
uh,
You have the car going over the cliff, and then it lands, and then there's a jump cut, and then the explosion. You know what I mean? The car falls into the ditch, and then they got to cut, and then, okay, light it on fire and send some fire. Okay, let's cut. Go and action. Yeah, I know. Or else when they throw somebody over a cliff, you see like a faraway shot of a dummy like hitting the side of the, whatever. Yeah, I know. Hey, whatever. But anyways, our movie today was The House That Vanished. Try to find it. I'll say it's worth watching, but try to find a good copy of it
not a
somewhere.
good time. Even though there's some really brutal editing cuts, it's still easier to follow and much better than.
You think the better version that's on there is easier to follow? I agree.
Yeah, definitely, because the other one is so muddy. And the only reason I could figure out what was going on was one, because I read about it,
you'd watched the first one
and
already
two,
too.
I watched the first one. But you
Yeah.
really don't see much of anything.
Yeah. The second one was just for added sex scenes or whatever.
Yeah,
So, all
and
right,
I don't know.
all
Cool.
right, time to go. Well, Roddy, you know what to do.
All right. In the meantime, you have to watch more B movies.